I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I'd like to welcome everybody who came from far and wide. First speaker is Rabbi Moshe Schwed, the CEO of Aldaf.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Green. I'm standing here overwhelmed. To give context for the Siyum, it all started last Tuesday morning when my Daf Yomi Chavusha didn't show up. I was sitting there, my mind was wandering, like all of us, especially these days. And I'm thinking about what's going on in Eretz Yisrael, what's going on here. And I'm far away in Lakewood. And we're seeing and hearing people packing food and sending duffel bags and visiting the Chayalim and doing all kinds of incredible things to mechazik them. And us, Baruch Hashem, we're trying to daven, trying to learn, and gather schusim for the matzav in Klal Yisrael. And I had a thought. I know in the past we've talked about making Siyumim. Is it possible to make a Siyum in Eretz Yisrael? I felt it would be a chizik for us. What could we do? We all know Torah Magnu Matzla. We all know the Gemara Megillah with Yeshua ben Nun. The Malach told him to be Lon Ukva Shel Halacha. So my first call was to Reb Danny Kunstler, who I've dealt with in the past. We've become good friends. And I said, is it possible? Now, I did not want Reb Zecharia Resnik to be involved in this. But, so to make a long story short, we're here tonight, and I've learned something new. Not only is Reb Zecharia a master Maggid Shir with thousands of Talmidim, he's a great party planner as well. Shkayach Reb Zecharia, Shkayach Reb Dani. So, Rabbi Green said I'm the CEO of Aldaf. Aldaf is a project of the OU. Some of you might recognize they have a symbol on the soda bottles, the Coke bottles, not here in Eretz Yisrael, here they have Landau. Other places, they have their symbol on some other products. So the executive vice presidents, on behalf of the executive vice presidents, Rabbi Moshe Hauer and Rabbi Josh Joseph, and the president, Mitch Ader, I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. And I want to thank the thousands of Talmidim of Zecharia around the world. And I must thank the Rosenberg family who have dedicated this Siyum, Le'ilu Nishmas, Moras, Miriam, Sarah, Basar, Yaakov, Moshe, Eloah, Hashalom, whose yahrzeit is this Shabbos. And I'm sure most of us sitting around here who have heard Reb Zecharia give his shir, every single shir starts off, and Reb Zecharia could do it much better than I could. The shir should be learned in memory, Le'ilu Nishmas, Moras, Miriam, Sarah, Basar, Yaakov, Moshe, for Neshama Shetaka Havan Aliyah, and the schus of us gathering together to be mechazik and learning. You know, I'm thinking people are taking on new things, more things. So some people listen to Zecharia on double speed. Maybe if you listen to him on single speed, spend a little more time learning, maybe that counts. I also wanted to mention Yosef Hendler, who sponsored today's learning on All Daf in honor of the Siyum. So thank you. And of course, I have to thank the Shul for opening up. The Shul, the name of the Shul is out there in the world. The Chashva Marada Asra, Rabbi Zucker, and I've met the Gabayim here. And Zecharia, I just heard about, if I'm here for Rosh Chodesh benching, this is the place to come for Rosh Chodesh benching, and every bracha and every Mavachim HaChodesh is needed with all the kavanah and all the tefillas. So the shul should have a kiyum and continued hatzlacha. We have very chashuv speakers. I didn't come to speak to say the Torah. I felt appropriate to share one medrash which many people have heard it, many people know it, but it's very appropriate. It's a medrash in this week's Parsha, Parshas Vayera. The Torah says, after the Akedah, Vayoshav Avram el Na'arav. Avram went back to Eliezer and Yishmael. The medrash asks, the Yitzchak, Heichon, where was Yitzchak? So the medrash says, Rebrechia b'shem Rabbanon de Taman, Shlachai Eitzel Shem Lul B'menu Torah. Where did Yitzchak go after the Akedah? Avram Avinu, it says, Shlachai. Avram Avinu sent him to Shem to learn Torah. And the medrash brings a mashal Isha in his ashram, Nipilcha. There was a mashal to a woman who became wealthy from her knitting, I think it is. Amr, she said, since I became wealthy from doing this job, I'm never going to leave this job. Everything that has come to me until now was only because I was Isaac in Torah and mitzvahs. I don't want this ever to leave my children. So what am I doing now? After the Akedah, I'm sending Yitzchak to learn by Shem. There's a very long arichas of the Meshech Chachma that brings out an unbelievable madrega, level of what Torah is. But I just wanted to bring out one point. This is Akedas Yitzchak. This is arguably the most impactful event that has happened to Klal Yisrael in history. It's what we say in davening, what we use, the Ma'ir Rachamim. This just took place. And what does Avraham Avinu tell us? I was only zeicha to this because of my Esek Torah, my doing mitzvahs is how I was zeicha to have the Akedas Yitzchak. And therefore, immediately after Akedas Yitzchak, I'm not complacent, going right back to the yeshiva, right back to the Beis Medrash. It's a Marid de Kalimur in just what Torah does, the schus and Torah brings, that Avraham Avinu tells us that the schus of Akedas Yitzchak came about through Esek Torah. And even after a person goes through an Akedas Yitzchak, what does he do immediately afterwards? He goes back to the Beis Medrash, or goes back to learn Torah. So with that, I believe, Rabbi Zecharia, we're ready for the Siyum. Would like to call up Rabbi Zecharia, but one thing I have to say before Rabbi Zecharia actually gets up, that the amount of people that I meet around I shouldn't say around the world, I'm not a big traveler. Everywhere I am, just from sitting here and talking to people, the different ways people interact with learning Rabbi Zecharia's, listening to Rabbi Zecharia's shir. And one person, I have to thank Hashem that I remember, because this person literally needs the biggest thank you. He's not here tonight, and his name is Ari Lerman. I don't know if people know who he is or heard of him, but I'm sure some people know who he is. Ari Lerman is the person who has introduced Rabbi Zecharia Resnik to the world. If it is another person, Rabbi Zecharia, please let me know. He introduced him to the world. We're not going to get into all the details of how. And Ad HaYom Hazeh, there's nothing that gets out there today without Ari Lerman. So Ari, I'm sure you'll see this at some point. Thank you. Before I got on a plane Tuesday morning, I live in Lakewood. I went to be Menachem Oval, somebody. Very, very sad story. This person is a working younger man, a little older than me. I knew him from yeshiva. Probably hadn't spoken to him in 20 years, anything more than 2 words, you know. A nod, meet him by a dinner, say Shalom Aleichem, that's it. His wife passed away suddenly. He has a daughter he's marrying off next week. He brought home 2 kids from Eretz Yisrael. Terrible, terrible tragedy. So I walked in to Menachem Oval. I walk in, these are his first words. You're going to help me get through this. So I looked at him, what did I do? So he says, there's a person, he showed me, he learns, there's something called the Dolgan method. There's a whole program where you can chazer 6-7 dafim a day, going through a program with chazaras. So we're talking about a Yira Talmud Chacham, a Baki in Shas. And he shows me his chart. He's in the middle of Shiva. He shows me his chart. He says, and he shows me his Gemara, the things that he has underlined. He says, I can't look because I'm in the middle of Shiva. And he says that this is my schedule. He's telling me how his wife, who just passed away, what she gave for his learning, what a schus that she has. And he says, when I can't do it myself, I do it with Rabbi Zecharia. And then he tells me, I just took on He says, I just started with the new Yerushalmi cycle. I learned, he says, this, I'm not ready, haven't gone through all these Masechtas, and I'm not doing the Dolgan method on Yerushalmi. But my first entry into Yerushalmi learning has been the few minutes a day listening to Zecharia Resnik shares. I just want to bring out what Rabbi Zecharia, what you're doing to help people that you don't know, and the schus of all these people growing and steiging and learning should be a schus for you, and of course your family, your children that are sitting there should realize what they're giving up, and what's chusim, and what kind of limud HaTorah you're bringing to the world. Shkayach.
Thank you very much for those very kind words. Appreciate it. Thank you for not only being here tonight, but for initiating this entire thing. As you said, Tuesday last week, this was not even a Havamina, and Moshe started the planning, and then once it was started, it took off on its own, and Baruch Hashem, we are all here tonight at this wonderful, beautiful Malchus de Siyum. That was... I really said the word Malchus just because I wanted to segue into the next thing, which is, as you can see, we have Malchus Choir over here. Thank you very much for joining us mamish last minute. And it's important to know why we have Malchus Choir, besides the fact that they're fantastic. We initially were going to have live music, which is obviously tends to usually be more geschmack when you have live music. And Al Piyah Hayra from the Rav, because of the matziv that we're in right now in Eretz Yisrael, it's not a simple matziv, it's not a pasha matziv. Baruch Hashem, we're all gathered together for a simcha. We should definitely be mesameach, but we always have to have all of Am Yisrael in mind, and definitely there's people, we all know that we have soldiers in Gaza and up north as well that are on the ground fighting hard to defend us and keep us safe as well. So we're doing our part, learning Torah and davening, doing as many mitzvahs as we can, but it's not a simple situation, and so this is the reason why we switched yesterday to be able to have the very fine Malchus Choir. So Yashar Koach for being here and being Mesameach us in the way that you are able to. Okay. Now, so there's a comedian that used to say a joke. He says that he was once sitting in an interview, and the interviewer asked him, "So where do you see yourself in 5 years?" So he responded, "Celebrating the 5th anniversary of you asking me this question." And so obviously at an interview that's very funny because they want you to tell them, what you project, where you're going to be in the company, how you're going to help them improve, and how you're going to be better, how they're going to be better. And so it's funny for a joke and for a comedian, but really that's what a Yid's response should be. If anyone asks, if a person asks you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I don't know, celebrating the 5th anniversary of you asking me this question, because I have no idea where I'm going to be in 5 years. 5 years ago, I never would have imagined that from a personal standpoint, I would be making a Siyum on half of Shas, and even maybe know a few of the blot along the way, which is for me, it's a huge simcha. I know that I set my mind to start Shas at least 3 times prior and wasn't successful. I think I might have made it to like Daf Yod and Brachas. So this is a very, very big simcha personally for me, for my family as well, for my wife and the kids, and it's a very big simcha to be able to be celebrating it with everyone here as well. If I can make a request, when I pause, that doesn't necessarily mean clap. It just means I'm catching my breath. So, just a few hakaras hatayvs are definitely necessary along the way. First of all, obviously, huge hakaras hatayv. Moshe mentioned that the Siyum would definitely not look like it does. Definitely would not look anything like it does right now, if not for it being sponsored. Leila Nishmas, Mars Miriam Sarah, Basar B'Yaakov Moshe. Her neshama should have a very big aliyah. The friends, the family, the Rebbeim that have encouraged me along the way to be able to get to the point where we are right now. A huge Yashar Koach to everyone. Special Yashar Koach. It's really a special Yashar Koach to everyone, but a special Yashar Koach from my heart to Anash in Kehila Kedosha, Beis Shloima, and the Ravs Zanges and Stark for encouraging and for allowing the Siyum to happen here and allowing many other things to happen in my personal life and my life along with friends and Kehila as well. So a very big Yasher Koyach. And last but not least, to my Yedid Nefesh, Daniel Green, for helping arrange the very fine details of the Siyum. Anyone that's part of the Kehila knows that we have many beautiful events in the Kehila, and there's many daily things that go on. And Daniel's the one that runs them, and he takes care of them. You're like, okay, Daniel's great, he's fantastic, But you don't realize how much goes into it. And this Siyum planning, I got a real taste of what Daniel goes through on almost a daily basis. So a very warm and personal Yasher Koyach to Yedid Nafshi on the side. I would like to, as we're Messiah, I'm just going to share a few words that I shall say inspired me at the end of learning this Masechta. The last Mishnah, the Mishnah ends off with the same thing the Gemara ends off with. The famous Gemara, the famous Mishnah, Rabbi Nerai Omer. I'm going to lift this up so I can actually see it. I leave all umnis, all crafts, all occupations to the side, and I only teach my son Torah. Why would he do that? A person eats from the schar of Torah in this world, but the principle is for the world to come. But all other crafts, occupations are not like that. When a person comes to be sick or old or there's some challenge in life, he's not able to get involved in his work, he can't do his work, he dies in hunger, and then we continue. It bothered me that just immediately learning this Mishnah for the first time, I don't understand. If you don't have an occupation and you're just learning Torah, how are you going to support yourself? You're probably going to be meis bara of quicker than if you had an occupation but then just weren't able to be involved in it at some point in time. Furthermore, what does that mean that your occupation should be Torah? On Daf Chavtes, earlier on, we learn that a person has to have an occupation. A father has a chiv to teach his son an occupation. If not, he's considered a ki'il malamde listus. It's like he's teaching him how to be a robber. A person has to be able to support themselves. It has to have some sort of parnasa. So you're going to say, I was thinking, okay, it's not a problem. So you'll be in Kailal, or you'll be a Rebbe, you'll give shiur, maybe this here, there, you'll work it out somehow, and that's how you're going to support yourself. Okay, so that's no different than having a regular umnis. That's not a Torah-based umnis. If a person's not able to be involved in it, if he's not able to learn, he's not able to, if there's a sickness, an old age, whatever it is, so weiter, he runs into the same issue. He's not going to be able to support himself. Perhaps fairly a simple question, but that's what, as I was literally reading the Mishnah for the first time, that's what fell into my head. Like there's something, what's the Mishnah saying? And then I realized, a short while later, that the Mishnah is not speaking about physical sustenance. It's not talking about your actual job that pays your bills, and that's how the money comes into your bank account. That's not what the Mishnah is referring to. Right beforehand, the Mishnah says that. The Mishnah tells us right beforehand, the amount of money you make has nothing to do with the profession you have, the occupation you're involved in. It comes from Hashem, so you just daven to Hashem. So the physical sustenance of a person is being spoken out at the beginning of the Mishnah. At the end of the Mishnah, I believe that it's speaking about the spiritual drive that a person has. What gets a person out of the bed in the morning? You wake up in the morning, you swing your feet off the bed, and you have to go on in life. You're gonna move forward. You're gonna put one foot in front of the other. What keeps you going in life? What keeps you excited to go about, as they call it, the daily grind? So if it's a person's umnis, that's great. Often a person you hope a person has a job that they like, and so it's exciting and it keeps them going and they love their job. Maybe they like crunching numbers. Maybe they're a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, or they're a contractor or whatever it is that they do, and they really love it and it's really exciting, and that's what keeps them going in life. The problem is they're going to run into an issue, because when they get sick or old or Yisurin Bayin Alav, so there's nothing left. What's going to be? They're not able to be involved in that which they love very much. Torah Einekain. Torah is not like that. We know that Torah is compared to bread, Torah is compared to water. A person's food, in essence, that keeps their soul going, which really keeps them going, is Torah. If I'm not mistaken, it's a Chassam Sofer. I think the Rav has said it multiple times. I think it's Chassam Sofer, that says, how did when Moshe Rabbeinu was up in Shemayim for 40 days, how did he, Lechem lo yechalti mayim lo shasisi, how did he survive? He survived off of Torah. The Torah, if you will, the spirituality of Torah kept him alive physically. Says the Chassam Sofer that, again, if I'm not mistaken, Erev Pesach, when Erev Pesach is Shabbos, a person needs to eat Shalosh Shuddis. How are you going to eat Shalosh Shuddis? Already past the Shalosh Shishis, the 6 hour, you're not allowed to eat. You're not allowed to eat challah. You're not allowed to eat bread. What are you supposed to do for Shalosh Shuddis? You could eat. There's many different ways to do it. You can sit and learn Torah for Shalosh Shuddis, and that is considered like you ate. If you learn Torah Lishma, you learn Torah properly, it's considered like you physically ate. Torah is a person's food. When it says in the Mishnah that a person is going to be meis bara of, that means he's going to die of a spiritual hunger, and memela that leads, we know that a person doesn't have anything in him spiritually to help him get along, so physically it's downhill from there as well. When a person has Torah, he has everything. We know Torah was given to the Eichlei Haman. Torah was given to the Eichlei Haman. Man is called Lechem Abirim Ochal Ish. The man is called Lechem Abirim. Torah is food. Bread is Torah. Maim is Torah. When a person makes Torah part of their life, that keeps them going in every situation. I just heard an incredible maisa from someone from the Kehila. He has 2 brothers that are serving down south, and the soldiers are sitting around. They don't, before they went in to have all their missions, there's tens of thousands of soldiers kind of sitting and waiting for orders. Even now, I don't think the whole army is down south. There's people waiting. There's maybe shmirah. There's a lot of time to sit around and not do much. So what are you supposed to do? What's supposed to occupy your time? So the more religious soldiers that have Torah in their life, so they took out Sfarim and they started learning. There are secular soldiers that never heard of Gemara, never looked at a Gemara, never learned anything. This Yid from the Kehila said that his brother told him that you have soldiers that never have seen Gemara before, never learned Gemara before, never heard of it before. They're sitting and they're learning Torah. What keeps you going in a time like that? When you sur in Arba and Olav, a person's in the army and they're fighting and there's challenges there. What's going to keep them going? How are they going to? I was thinking somewhat of maybe perhaps a corny pun. Yelech mechayil el chayil. How are you supposed to go from one strength to another? How do the soldiers do such a thing like that? When they have Torah, so they have everything. A person's Torah keeps them going on in life. I read this fascinating story a number of years ago that happened after the 2 Daf Yomi cycles ago. So obviously, whenever there's a Siyum HaShas, there's tons of people, and there's always a big rash in the Jewish world about the Siyum HaShas, and even the secular press picks up on it. And often they'll say the Jews finished their page a day, and they made this whole get together for it. A conservative Jew discovered that there was a Siyum HaShas. There was some sort of idea of learning a page a day. He didn't know anything. So for whatever reason, it could be his Pintel Yid, his Neshama told him that maybe you should do something. So he decided to start learning Daf Yomi. Okay, he had an art scroll. There was no All Daf by then, so he didn't have any. He somehow found a way to start learning Daf Yomi every day in the way that he knew. Day after day, week after week, him, his wife, his kids, everyone, they got involved in Daf Yomi. A short while later, a few months into the cycle, he got diagnosed with Yana Machla and his life was turned upside down. Zikna, Yisurin, Chayli, everything came out, the whole Mishnah came tumbling on him at once. And he recounted in this article that he wrote, he said he would not have survived, Pshuta Kamashmai, he would not have survived if he didn't have Daf Yomi in his life. Sometimes he had family, sometimes he had friends helping him, maybe his community came along, but for the most part of the day, when a person's sick in the hospital, he's there by himself, and a person gets depressed, and we know that that's not a good situation. He said it literally kept him and his family going, learning Daf Yomi every single day. This is something that, when we realize how much Torah impacts our life, that's a real lesson for us to bring it into our lives. And this is not only people that are in the army, and this is not only conservative Jews, this is for yeshiva light as well. Because a person has 3 sidarim a day in yeshiva, kollel, yeshiva, wherever they are. But in between those sidarim, bein sidarim, what occupies a person? What takes up a person's time? What takes up a person's headspace, his mindset? What does he want to do? He has been a yeshiva light have bein zmanim. Bein zmanim, a person has to recharge his batteries. He should go on trips and wherever it is he's going to do. But there's 24 hours today in bein zmanim. You're not occupying yourself with trips for 24 hours. Maybe you are. That's pretty impressive. But we have a whole Bein Hazmanim, we have Yontif, we have Shabbos. When a person makes Torah his life, when he makes Torah his essence, when he makes it his umnus, when he makes it his craft, his occupation, and that's his whole focus in life, it totally changes his life around. There's a Meister of Shlomo Freifeld. They asked Shlomo Freifeld, why don't we cancel Bein Hazmanim? Bein Hazmanim is such a waste of time. People are wasting so much time. What are you doing Bein Hazmanim? Cancel Bein Hazmanim. I don't know. Maybe the yeshiva could take trips together from time to time, but there's no reason to have Bein Hazmanim. You have yeshiva light not doing anything for a while. So he said, first of all, some people need to play basketball, so let them play during Bein Hazmanim. He said, but more than that, if you want to see who's truly dedicated to Torah, who really made Torah their very essence, who really made it their umnus, you look at a yeshiva guy during Bein Hazmanim, you see what he's doing, what he's focused on. If he's making it a point to learn, he's making it a point to have a Seder every single day, that's something, that's a person whom you know is a real, that's a real Ben Torah who really made Torah his umnus. I'm going to conclude with a Maisa that's within my family. There's a person in my extended family who's still in yeshiva. He's still learning. He's a huge Talmid Chacham. And about 15 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, he took on something called his hour. He has his hour. What's his hour? He decides that he's going to learn at least an hour a day. And when I heard about this, it was a pellet to me. Because what do you mean? He learns 15 hours a day. Why is he learning at least an hour a day? What's the chiddush in that? And I realized, and he never explained to anyone, he always had his hour, he had to learn his hour whenever it was. And I realized later on, as his kids grew older and he's making bar mitzvahs and brisim and birthday parties and kids are sick and this and that and there's Bein Hazmanim, he made sure to learn 1 hour every single day, no matter what the situation was. It could be 1 o'clock in the morning, he was sitting there learning that hour, waking up early, late, during Bein Hazmanim, he made sure that he had his 1 hour a day, no matter what. Now he's a dayan, so in Bezdin, it could be busy, this and that, could not get to yeshiva perhaps the whole day. He makes sure to learn his hour every single day. When a person's omnis is their Torah, when their craft, their occupation is their Torah, it lasts them when they're younger and when they're older, no matter what. Chayli, Zikna, Yisurin, Bain Olav, he has Torah in his life. And particularly at this point in time, I believe that, especially we see this incredible resurgence of people being chayzer b'tshuva. We have tens of thousands of pairs of tzitzis that were given out, thousands of pairs of tefillin that were given out, an incredible amount of desire and shukah that people have for limud HaTorah and for connecting to Kodesh Brichu is something that we can all and should all bring into our lives on a personal level to make Torah our omnes as much as possible. And Be'ez Hashem, with that, we should be zeichet to see the true geula b'mheir yameinu. We shall do a Siyum. Tiny Rabbi, I'm Nechani Kol Mishabal Elim, I'm Ela Torah, Shakal Mishabal Elim, I'm Medes Loy Elimay Aldusai, Aval Mezik Nusa, Harry Mutal Barav, Aval Torah Enakain, I'm Medes Loy La Elim, I'm Medes Loy La Adam, but Is Aldusai, when I send Loy Achres, Vitikva, Basic Nusai, Base Aldusai, Mahu Aimer, Vikoye Hashem Yachlifu Koyach, Yalu Ever Kanasharm, Bizik Nusai, Mahu Aimer, Oidinu from Beseva the Shinin Vrananim EU Hajanulach Asar Yochsin Uslikala Misachas Kiddushin Uslikala Seder Nashim Hajalach Misachas Kiddushin Vahajach Allah and Datarach Misachas Kiddushin Datachlan Loy Nis Shem Menach Misachas Kiddushin Vlasas Shem Non Laba Almadin Laba Almada Asi Hajalach Misachas Kiddushin Vahajachlan Datarach Misachas Kiddushin Datachlan Loy Nis Shem Menach Misachas Kiddushin Vlasas Shem Non Laba Almadin Laba Almada Asi Hajalach Misachas Kiddushin Vahajachlan Datarach Misachas Kiddushin Datachlan Loy Nis Shem Menach Misachas Kiddushin Vlasas Shem Non Laba Almadin Laba Almada Asi Yirtzum Fnachad Neilhin V'Sinu Shetahei Terascha Umanu Seinu by the Mazah, say Yimon Ba, Chini Rapapa, Rapapa, Nachman Papa, Chayu Papa, Mar Papa, Rafim Papa, Raksh Papa, Circle Papa, Other Papa, Daru Papa, Harav Nodin, the news Space, Finu, Fias of Israel, Vina Kuan Nachum says, of Israel, Kuan Dishmech, Lim Sacha, Mevit Techak Minim Sacha, Kilom, he leaves some Kacha, Man Loy Evash, Loyal Ashik, Vidaka, Kifan Fisani, Barkhat, Adonai, Kacha, Amin, Amin, Salvo Ed, Modim Nachmunacha, Adonai, Him Sinu, Shesamtach can be Yesha Base of Edge, Boy Samtach can be Yesha Kronis, Shamashkim, Himashkim, Anumashkim, the Sarah, Himashkim, Dvarm Talem, Anu Milam, Him, Anu Amilam Kamskar, Him, Amilam, the Enum Kamskar, Anu Ratsam, Him Ratsam, Anu Ratsam, the Him Ratsam, Shachas, Shanamra, Atul, Him, Terminating Lever Shachas, Anshi Dom Mirma, Loyal, Yamim, and Yeftach Bach, Yurtsum Fanacha, Elihai, Shame has the time, same substitution, Kintazin, Lahaskel, Sachta, Stramachim, Simon, Lilmoid, Ulam, and Lishma, Lasses, Kaim, it's called Visam Tarsach Ava. וסחוס כל תנאים ומרם סמדי חכם ים לזרי של תלמש התורם פיום פיזרי וזרי זרי עד עולם וסקיים בי בסלחת אין חייסך בשח ורשתש מרלך והקי צריך לצא היא ססיחך כי ויר במלך וסיף חלש נסחיים ארכם מינם סמל אש בכבד אדוני אוזם הייתן אדוני ברך סמי והשלום
שגודל בתוירה וימולוי בתויר אוי אשרי מי שגודל בתוירה וימולוי בתוירה אשרי מי שגודל בתוירה וימולוי בתוירה
Rishos Yedid Nafshi. I'm humbled before him. World-renowned Magid big schus for us to have Rabbi Zecharia here in the Kehillah, his Torah, his Tfilis, his Chazonos, his Neimus, his Benanim L'Chaveroi, his sense of humor, his Klil Amailas, Isha Shkulos is definitely, is definitely one of the Amudim here of the Kehillah Kedosha, and we're very fortunate, and we're hearing more and more stories. I keep on telling him that London, New York, California, I keep on hearing that people tell me that they're tuned in, and definitely I have advice for all of you. Somebody mentioned it before, that Zecharia gives the share in order to whet your appetites to do it again properly. Zecharia is a perfectionist at whetting appetites. So Mitzvah Hashem, he should be Zocher to complete Bavli, to complete Yerushalayim, to complete Shishis Sidra Mishnah, and the Mitzvah Hashem to be Mar B'Torah B'Yisrael, and Zecharia should continue more and more mitoch simcha, brios, nachas, mikol yotzei chalotzov, and his father, his Schwed, both supportive and both help, and you should both be Zocher Mitzvah Hashem to see. You've got thousands of Eneklach, Baruch Hashem, thousands and thousands, and you should have nachas from all of them. Mitzvah Hashem lo'erich yom Hashem toivus. Thank you for all those that organized this, for Rabbi Schwed for coming in, for those who flew in, and shkoyach for all the members who came to the Kehillah Kedosha. We heard the main Masa Merkazi from Zecharia. Just want to be Makasher, but Parshas Vayera to the Siyum, Mesachas Kedushin. The emes is that Mesachas Kedushin has more shaykhs to Matan Torah, to Kabbalah Torah, than all the other Mesachtas. Matan Torah is called Yom Chasunosa, Izu Matan Torah. Kedushin is Matan Torah. In fact, the Svar Makdoshim say, Ha Isha Niknis, who's the Ha, who's the Hey HaYidiyah? Isha Niknis, the Hey HaYidiyah. Ha Isha Niknis is the Klal Yisrael, who's the Isha. Matan Torah was Kechosna Yotze Likras Kala. Klal Yisrael is the Isha. Ha Isha Niknis B'Shlosh Drachim. B'Shalosh Drachim. In other words, the Yom Chasunosa is the Chasna, is Matan Torah, and Kedushin is the chasna between us and Hashem. So Mesechus Kedushin has more shaykhs to Matan Torah than all the other Mesechtes. But by Yoser, in Matan Torah we see a big chiddush. The Matan Torah was a chasna, but the chiddush of Matan Torah was that it was a chasna t'midis. Every time a person learns Torah, he's getting married again and again and again. It's all the first marriage, not a second marriage. It's all the first marriage. A person's getting remarried and remarried and remarried to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kud Shebri Chorais of Yisrael Chadahu, through the Torah all the time. Matan Torah was Nischadesh, Chasana Tmidis. Matan Torah Bechlal has shaykhs to his Chadshus, has shaykhs to Maisa Bereishis, Yom Hashishi, his Shishi B'Sivon, Kul Alma Nit the Torah B'Shabbos, because Shabbos is Maisa Bereishis. The Torah was placed on the Even Hashsiyah, because that's where the Bria began. Torah has to do with the Indian of his Chadshus. If Torah is Yom Chasunosoi, Al Tikra Morosha Le Morosa. Is Shabbat Torah is Chadshus Tmidi. That every time a person learns Torah, it's a new chasna with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a new Chadshus and a new chasna. And this could be Pshat ve'eso eschem al kanfei nesharim. Hashem says, I'm carrying you on an eagle's wings. One of the avchonas to reason why, as a achona for Kabbalah Torah, Hashem took us on an eagle's wings. A nesher, an eagle, corresponds to a hischadshus tmidi. An eagle is a nifladika bird. The Radak says a lot of different mefarshim, mefarshe hakra, talk about the Indian of hischadshus by an eagle. A lot of psukim, tischadesh, keneshen, uraichi, nesher, an eagle has to do with hischadshus. The Radak brings down that an eagle every so often flies very high, every 10 years or something, flies very high. He lives 100 years, and he flies every 10 years very high, and he goes so near the sun that he gets burnt. And then he comes down, and he cools himself down in the ocean, and then everything starts growing again. He starts becoming this chadish all again. It's a niflatika bird. Rashi says in Novi, I think, on the pasuk Tischadish Kanesha Reich, Rashi, one of the Mefarshim, say that even when the Nesher gets old, he's always mechadish himself. A Nesher has to do with his chadshus. The pasuk that we just heard, V'koyei Hashem yachlif koyach yalu eve kenesharim, also talks about the wings of an eagle that are always nischadish. V'koyei Hashem yachlif koyach. The eagle is his chadshus. Hashem is giving us the Torah. Hashem says, "V'esa eschem al kanfei nesharim, v'avi eschem elai." I'm going to bring you to me like an eagle. That you're going to be totally nischadish. Our connection, our relationship through the Torah is constantly bechidushay. Is be'emes. This is the shaykhs to Mesachas Kedushin. It's very beautiful that the Balaturim, the Heilige Balaturim on the pasuk, "V'esa eschem al kanfei nesharim," says the Balaturim on the pasuk. Where do you see the first Mishnah Mesachas Kedushin? And so the Balaturim on the pasuk of "Eschem al kanfei nesharim" says, "Ha'isha niknes b'shalosh drochim, b'kesef zu bizas Mitzrayim bizas hayom, b'shtar is the Torah, b'biyah." Brings a pasuk in Yecheskel, but he says, "Va'avi eschem elai." Va'avi is gematria bebiyah. So mamish, the first Mishnah in Kedushin is nischadesh in the pasuk, "Va'esa eschem al kanfei nesharim va'avi eschem elai," because Kedushin is a chasana, which is a hischadshus, or a hischadshus in Torah is a hischadshus temidis, and that's why Mesachas Kedushin Taka finishes up with the two psukim. When a person's young, mahu oimeh. V'koyei Hashem yachlif koyach yalu eva kenesharim. Siknuse, a person gets old. Ma'oime oid yenuvim b'seva. The shenim v'rananim you, which means that even when a person gets old, he's still fruitful. The shenim v'rananim, he's still fruitful. The Malbim, the Mefarshim bring down, he's still pray or revei, like the Mishnah says in Kinim. On the contrary, but the older a person gets in Torah, a Talmid Chacham, the older he gets. Data misyasheves, data mitoisefes, different lashonos in Chazal. Torah is a constant chasna. Torah is a constant hischadshus and a constant chasna. The Isha is Klal Yisrael getting married to Hashem through the Torah. The Isha is that connection. It's Taka in this week's parasha. We have the Ha'isha. The first Isha that we're Mesiachas to is Sarah Imeinu. And Sarah Imeinu, she says, Achrei b'loisi hoiseli edna v'adoini zokin. Sarah Imeinu Tainus, she's too old to have children. Oh, but the nest that happened in this week's parasha is that Sarah Imeinu became young again. And Sarah Imeinu had a child as Yitzchak. Sarah is the Isha. Sarah is the Isha, the Ha'isha. She's the first mother that we're Mesiachas to. So Mamela, therefore, the nest of Sarah, when she was old, she's still young, that's the connection of Am Yisrael, who's the Isha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through the connection of Torah, where a person is always young, a person gets younger, and data mitesefes, data misyashefes, and this is an achrayis that everybody has to. A person who's connected to Matan Torah, person who's connected to Matan Torah, which constantly hayoim, constantly sees a fresh chasna and a fresh connection and a fresh relationship with Hashem through the Torah, a fresh kutcha bricha reis of Yisrael chadu through the Torah, and the emes. So that's the Mesachas of Kedushin. Begins with a pasuk, Balaturim, with a pasuk Alan Kanfei Nesharim. It ends with a Evek Nesharim. It ends with a Oid Yinuvim B'Seva. And Dafayomi, the mile of Dafayomi is that is always constant. It's a chiddush. Every day is a new daf. Every day a person's moving, and he's moving, and it's a new daf. And Zecharia, one of the miles of Zecharia is that he's never boring. Zecharia is never boring. Zecharia learns he's not boring. When he davens, he's not boring. And Taka, as Zecharia Sichas Chulin, also not boring. David HaMelech lived constantly by his chadshus. David HaMelech was a bar nafle, he was a nefel, he was a stillborn baby. Every rega of David HaMelech's life was a new chadshus. And David HaMelech begins Taka in the first parak in Tehillim. The person's oisik b'Torah yom v'layla v'hoya keit shosel al palgi morim asher peria yitim be'itoi v'aleyu lo yiboil. Rashi says, Sichas Chulin shel Talmidei Chachamim. But the Alei lo Yibol, there's no lo Yibol, there's no Yibol b'Torah, there's no getting old b'Torah. On the contrary, tzaddikim were against retirement. They were against retirement. You can perhaps retire from your job and learn, but retirement to take life easy that's against the Torah. The Torah says fakir. The older you get, the younger you get. The older you get, the younger you get. The Torah is mishabech, praises Sarah. She's a bas chuf, bas zayin. She's getting younger and younger. That's something that I'm sure a lot of people get hooked onto the shirim of Rabbi Zecharia. He's always fresh. He's always geschmack. And zui gedaka shel Torah. So the Baruch Shalom should help you. You should be zocher to continue gesundheit, mitoch panosa toiva, mitoch brias gufa nahara malya, and in Mitzvah Hashem you should be zocher b'siyata d'shmaya to be marbe b'talmidim. And Mitzvah Hashem, as you mentioned earlier, Klal Yisrael is going through a difficult tkufa. Torah is magna or matzla, and we have in mind as we're sitting here, we have in mind Achenu Beis Yisrael who are being mecharf and nafsham, begufam, to be mogen, to protect us, to protect that Tzena Akdosha. And the Mitzvah Hashem, the Eibusha help in the Mitzvah Hashem, that He should protect them all. And the Eibusha help in the Mitzvah Hashem. Har Sinai is Shiyar the sinner l'umas oilam, and the sin of the umas oilam everybody sees. And the Rebbeinu Shalom should see us as the Remamtana Mikol Al Shoinos and the V'chatana Mikol Amim. And the Rebbeinu Shalom should inflict a mapala gedola on all the umas oilam who persecute us, and all those who are soinim and trying to hurt us. And the Rebbeinu Shalom should help the Klal Yisrael should be oilam mala, and we should be zocher to this chadshus of the Shechina Akdosha b'Sechenu b'Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi shetibona b'Sekoinen b'Mehera b'Yameinu Amen.